November 9th, 1872. At 7:15 p.m., the Great Fire broke out at the corner of Summer and Kingston Streets, which swept off nearly all the buildings between Summer, Washington, Milk, and Broad Streets, destroying nearly $100 million of property and many lives. Firemen were called from other cities. Buildings were blown up to stop the progress of the flames. The military were called out for a police relief. The gas was shut off, leaving the city in darkness for 2 nights, and Boston presented a scene never to be forgotten. Edward S. Savage, Boston Chief of Police, 1873.
November 16th, Saturday. Went into Boston to Dr. Derby. We, that is, Emma and myself, went in together and got several glimpses of the burnt district, but were prevented by soldiers from entering those enchanting regions. But Mama and I afterward had a fine look of it from the upper window of Hovey's store. It has a very strange, dim, volcanic look, with piles of masonry emerging from a sea of smoke, and fire engines spouting promiscuously among them.
Each spring, the History and Library Science programs at Simmons College team up to teach a class on collective memory, or how society remembers its past. The class includes a group project, and our group chose to look at the memory of the Great Boston Fire of 1872. Some of us knew more about it than others.
Since last fall, I've been working in an internship in the Simmons College archives, and on my first day in the archives, Donna Weber sat me down and said, read this book, and that was Delayed by Fire, An Early History of Simmons College. The whole reason it's called Delayed by Fire is because the founding of Simmons College was delayed beyond the death of John Simmons for about 30 years because the investments that he had left to found the college were all destroyed by this Boston fire.
I knew there was a fire in Chicago and there was one in Boston, but I'd only heard about the Chicago fire, so I really didn't know any areas of town that it was in or anything.
I had an undergrad class for American disasters, and it kind of just shadowed in the topic of the Chicago fire, so it was nothing we had to read about or anything like that, but it was discussion in class, but mostly about the Chicago fire.
I never heard of it. I'm not from New England. I've only lived in Boston a year and a half, 2 years, and know very little about Boston history. I've walked the Freedom Trail when I was a small child, and that's about it.
I knew that it was a fire. What do you know about the Boston fire?
Boston Fire?
Yeah.
Fire of 1872 burned a
So you can look at them with a little stereo card viewer that we gave people.
As much as I know.
Like many other researchers, we began our search on Google. We found a number of things, such as a Wikipedia entry, a site related to a recent documentary called Damrell's Fire, various digitized books from the era, and even a Boston Fire Museum. There was a lot of material on the fire. It seemed odd that we could all live in Boston and never have seen the physical traces of such a large event. So we decided to hit the streets. We met on a cold Saturday afternoon at Downtown Crossing, armed with several maps and a camera. We decided to start our search for traces of the fire where it had started on 87 Summer Street. We expected a significant marker, but instead we found a small plastic sign with coffee stains on it. We wondered if anyone nearby knew anything about it.
Have you ever noticed the marker?
I've noticed it, but now I just read it.
What do you know about the Boston fire?
Boston Fire?
Yeah. Well, because we found this marker, and we're just wondering.
Okay, look at that?
Yeah, like we're just wondering like if you knew anything about it.
Not really.
Are you from Boston?
I kind of.
Okay, all right.
Last 6 years I've been.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks.
Are you doing the Freedom Trail? Is it on the Freedom Trail?
No, it's not on the Freedom Trail. So
I've never done the Freedom Trail.
we're doing a project on the Boston fire. Do you know anything about it?
No.
Okay, are you from Boston?
No, we're from Connecticut.
There's 2 fires.
Yeah.
There's like a big fire that started in a nightclub that like burned down and like a whole bunch of college students died.
You're just talking
Coconut
about
Grove.
Coconut, yeah.
Coconut
And
Grove,
then there's
okay.
another one that like got rid of like a lot of historical buildings. Is that what you're talking? That's about as much as I know.
Sorry.
Hi, ma'am. Can we talk to you for a second?
No, why?
We're graduate students from Simmons. And we're doing a project on Boston history.
But I'm not from Boston.
Where are you from?
I'm from Newton.
Oh, you might know.
About the Boston Fire of 1872? No. The whole district was burned.
No, really.
We are working on the project for the Great Boston Fire in 1872. Do you know anything about it?
Nope.
All right, thanks.
I know that the Boston Fire started somewhere in the financial district around Washington Street.
Yep.
And burned its way eastward down basically to the docks. And the one thing that I know, being of Irish
With your Irish,
descent, is that the offices of the Boston Pilot were destroyed. And the editor, Patrick Donahoe, was devastated by the loss.
The Old South Meeting House, built in 1729 and the largest building in colonial Boston, was almost destroyed in the fire. Its rescue became legendary. Firemen stopped the fire as flames leapt across the street. The rescue of Old South was commemorated in etchings like this one. We decided to visit the Meeting House, now a museum, to ask people what they knew about the fire.
Well, if you go in here, I just bought a book. Bookstore downstairs. They have a book about the fires in Boston, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's the table where you go in there.
Do you have any books about it here?
There is. Check on that first rack right there.
Okay. Oh, Boston on Fire.
The Grove Fire.
Coconut, yeah.
This is the patriotic ones. On the back it says Abraham Lincoln. Davy Crockett, Harriet Tubman, Apollo astronaut, Blackbeard, Ronald Reagan.
Sharing the basement of Old South is Commonwealth Books, where we found another copy of Boston on Fire. We also found a rack of prints.
That's from the fire. View of the ruins.
So it is possible to buy fire memory. Of course, making a buck off the fire is nothing new. In another book, we saw that the fire could be used as a marketing tool only weeks after it took place.
Yeah, the Great Fire did not reach the tool store of Goodnow. So here it's being used as to sell things.
Right. Read about the tragedy and then buy your coats and vests.
Buy your,
Authors and or publishers also use books about the fire as tools for self-promotion.
Oh, here's actually an author for, or an advertisement for Russell Conwell's History of the Great Fire in Boston.
Is that one of the ones we've seen?
Yeah, that's the one we saw downstairs.
Oh, okay. What does it say?
The magnitude and effect of the Great Conflagration seem to demand a permanent record. It is our intention to publish a correct and complete account of the origin, progress, and extent of the fire, as seen by an eyewitness, together with scenes and incidents written in the author's best style. It is our purpose to make it a first-class book in every respect. It will contain a large amount of statistical and other matters of real value, and be worthy of a permanent place in every private and public library in the land.
It was supposed to be in every library. Did it make it? Is it now? This is where our librarian skills and OCLC collaboration come in handy.
So there it is. It's in 95 libraries in the Boston area, including BPL, NEHGS, which is us, the Boston Athenaeum, Simmons College, the State Library of Massachusetts, Harvard, Massachusetts Historical Society, Boston College, Brandeis.
A pretty good sales job on the $1.50 book.
Yeah, there was. Now let's check in Idaho. Closest one is 200 miles away, which is University of Utah at Salt Lake, and then BYU in Provo, University of New Mexico, and some places in California.
Back at Old South Meeting House, we decided to ask the desk staff what they knew about the fire, and if they frequently got questions about it.
Well, the fire of 1872 burned a significant portion of the downtown area. 776 buildings were burned over the 3 days, and the fire actually burned all the way up to Milk Street, and the meeting house is located at the corner of Washington and Milk Street. So the building narrowly escaped the fire.
The fire practically destroyed this place. Surely the exhibits would make a big deal of it.
What's in the exhibit case?
In the exhibit case, we have an example of a child's tea set, which was melted together in the fire. Do we have anything else?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, right?
So do a lot of people come in curious about it, or?
No, not really. Mostly people come in here looking for information about the Boston Tea Party, since the tea tax debates took place here, and especially since the Boston Tea Party ship is no longer open. A lot of people who are interested in learning about the Tea Party end up coming here instead.
In parts of the city, even the topography has changed. The Boston waterfront looks almost nothing like it did in 1872. We did find a few markers.
Stone and tablet from former post office building.
Burnt? Is that a burnt?
R-E-S-E.
Reset, July 11th.
1960. 1933.
33.
So if they use original stone.
Another persistent memory centered around Box 52, where the alarm for the fire was first rung. After the fire, it gained a reputation as a cursed box and gave its name to the Box 52 Association, a group of fire buffs that still exists today. We wanted to find the original location of the box.
There's Box 52.
Yeah, which I'm going to take another stab at today.
Okay.
Because I think we missed it somehow. I'm continuing our hunt for the original Box 52, which I think I've possibly identified from an internet search as being at the corner of Lincoln and Bedford Streets. Here at the corner of Bedford Street and Lincoln Street. And there is a firebox. So maybe that's Box 52 right there. Boston Fire Department. Yeah, hi. I'm not sure I've reached the right place. I'm trying to reach the Public Affairs Office. We're doing a project on the Boston Fire of 1872, and I'm trying to find out the original location of Box 52 where the fire was first called in. Okay, you're not sure? I just talked to someone at the alarm office of the Boston Fire Department, and it seems that this is indeed Box 52, although it's now numbered Box 1431. So it is located in front of a Starbucks coffee at basically the intersection of Lincoln, Bedford, and Summer Streets here in the financial district, and is pretty much unremarkable. There is no historical sign or anything there, so you would not know that anything big happened here.
I don't think that there was much commemoration, and there was not much sentimentality involved with the whole incident. And I think that's another reason, one of the other reasons that that it was not that well remembered or that well thought of.
Bruce Twickler was head of the Cambridge-based team that produced Damrell's Fire, an hour-long documentary shown on PBS stations across the country.
So we started just focused on the fire because it was a story not often told and not well known, even in Boston, the people who have been in there all our lives, about Boston's fire, which was a fire that was the second most destructive in the 19th century, second only to Chicago's, which was the year before. We wanted to reproduce the city in 3D in our animation, building for building as accurate as we could. So the first thing we did was hunt around for, in the archives, for photos and lithographs, architectural drawings, and whatever we could find that would sort of provide a picture of the city in the 1872. We thought the animation could add some drama to fires burning through buildings.
I got into one story of the building but could not get to the other.
Then he has to tell the boy that he was not able to find his parents.
It was too late.
But as my colleagues, Kurt Gray and Dave O'Gara, began modeling, and we saw what the 19th century city looked like, our imaginations heated up. What if we could extend our 3D computer simulations to whole streets and neighborhoods and reconstruct Boston as it actually was in 1872? We were in like 85 to 90% of all U.S. households with TVs, which is pretty good. And of the people, of those households, 2 to 3% turned it on. Turned on the thing. It was there, and then 2 to 3% saw it. So there was a few million people saw the film, which was more than we anticipated when we started the project.
Twickler's movie did in fact raise some interest in the fire.
When he came and presented his documentary over the old State House 2 years ago, we had a complete full house. This hadn't been aired on television yet, and it was, people were questioning when it was over, why don't people know more about this? We don't know, maybe no one chose to tell the story, but he did.
The documentary may have been seen by millions on PBS, but the fact remains that most people on the street don't seem to know much about it.
Do you know anything about it?
No.
We asked Twickler his opinion.
If you went on your European tour in October of 1872 and didn't come back for 14 months, the city rebuilt, say sometime in 1874, something like that, the city rebuilt so fast that you might not have known that there had been a fire at all. Number two is there's not many people who were killed. For a blaze of this ferocity and this magnitude, there were only around 20 to 25 people killed. About half of those were firemen, which was very sad. But compared to Chicago or other big fires, it was a very small number of people. And the third reason that we think that there was it never really caught on in the popular imagination was that there was no story of some mythical origin, like a cow kicking over a lantern, like Chicago had that, which was completely untrue. And people have proven it beyond any doubt that there was no cow and there was no kicking over of lanterns or anything else. But, it made a good story and it caught on, and so everybody knows about the cow. But we had no cow and we had no lantern, and all we had is a horrific fire.
But maybe a horrific fire just can't compete with Boston's other, more fabled past.
Do you get a lot of questions about it?
We don't.
Okay.
Most people are here to talk about the Tea Party stuff.
Talk about the Tea Party, okay.
We may not have found a lot of memory of the fire, but we did find another common collective memory: the molasses flood of 1919.
Like, we found this marker here.
Oh, there you go.
And we're just like wondering if anybody knows about it.
Is that the same thing as the? No, I'm thinking of the molasses thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know about the Boston fire.
Maybe people told you that still on some days in the North End, when it's really hot, you can smell molasses on some streets.
They had a molasses flood, that's right.
Somehow, it's so unusual.
Right.
Great fires are almost like a dime a dozen, but people drowning in molasses, that's really something different.
The molasses was just sort of this freakish thing. It didn't cause that much damage, not that many people. This was actually, to be the second most destructive fire in the 19th century, you had to be very destructive. You had to, for example, burn out 65 acres and 775 buildings, and 10% of the wool that was in the country, and raw wool that was in the country was in the storehouses there at the time. This was much more important as to the city of Boston and the way it looks.